All right, well, people are coming in. Good morning, and thanks again for everyone for joining us. We're going to get started with a quick question to our panelists, and then we'll follow up with talking a little bit about how the morning is going to be structured and meet each person and what we're here to do. And let's see. So let me ask our panelists. What is you've been having a lot of conversations with clients and connections and been on webinars and workshops like this. What's the top issue that you think are on business owners and business people's minds as you're having these conversations? Marcia?
Oh, employees. What are we doing with my employees? Can I keep them, or do I have to put them on furlough or layoff? Biggest question right now.
Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That is the first question, because they are most of the cost with most of the businesses we're working with. So that is the first question.
Plays again. Lisa, how about you?
Well, mine is all about what do my salespeople do right now, and how do leaders manage these salespeople in these uncertain times?
I'm hearing a lot of the same. I'm hearing a lot of I don't know what to do next, right? Because it's so uncertain. That's the fact that we don't know what's next is kind of freezing us in indecisiveness and spewing a lot of these other questions that you guys are hearing. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about the day. We want to make this an interactive process, but given the fact that we've tried Zoom meetings with over 20 people, it's challenging with so much interaction on a video chat platform. So we've structured this one as a webinar. So I kind of wanted to quickly run through with you guys what some of the features are that we'll be using at this webinar to try to make it as interactive as possible. First and foremost, we're going to be launching some polls throughout the course of this webinar. So if you're coming in by phone, you won't see any of these, but if you're coming in by the Zoom application or website or with video, that you'll be able to see the polls and participate in them. The second thing is we're using the chat window and the Q&A window. So you'll see at the bottom of your screen a Q&A button, and the Q&A button will bring up a window where you can input questions, and we can answer questions live online, or we could live on the video, or we could also answer questions and participants can have conversations around questions there. The same thing is true in the chat window. You'll see a chat button, and we're going to keep the chat window live as well. We've got Matt Karminski working with us to sort of monitor what's going on, to feed us any sort of questions or opportunities. When you do ask a question, some of the questions we'll answer live, so we'll be able to turn on your audio. In the webinar format, we'll be able to turn on your audio. And a couple times during the program, we're also going to do some screen sharing. Our goal today is to give you as much information as possible, but try not to make it generic information. Try to make it information directly related to what's on your minds. Hence all of the opportunity to be as interactive as possible, while presenting it in a way that hopefully is digestible and not chaotic. A lot of us are new to this, working remotely, working as impersonal as this two-dimension might be. So bear with us. And if you have any feedback along the way, if we're talking too fast or something's not coming across well, please use the chat window to give us feedback. We're open to that. I think, myself and Marcia and Jeff and Lisa are all very, very, open and vulnerable people, and we're willing to hear whatever you have to say. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm gonna jump into a screen share of a presentation to sort of frame a little bit about the scope of what we can cover today. So I'm going to assume that people can see my screen now, only because I can't see what you see. And I'm going to, all right, except for, hang on, 30 seconds, because I can't see my own presentation because of all these Zoom windows up. Okay, so here we go. Apologize. So what we're going to look today is what I've bucketed into 3 categories called fact, fiction, and fantasy. The fact is, our reality last week, this week, next week. It's what are the elements that we have been forced to address immediately, right? So it's the world that's been thrust upon us. Number one concern we're hearing from people is just general health and safety. We are in the middle of a pandemic. Number two is concern versus panic. Oh my God, what do I do? And all the fear that comes along with that. The three is lack of preparedness. I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't ready for our pandemic. I wasn't ready for remote work. I wasn't ready for an economic crisis. Nobody saw any of this coming, at least certainly not prior to a few months ago. Money. We're all in business. Money. Cash, collections, expenses. These are all the things that the fears triggered us to look at first. People, staffing, in part because some of us don't have businesses anymore, and some of us have to start looking at expenses. And as Jeff pointed out, people are our largest expense. All of the programs, the bailouts, the lifelines, there's a lot happening that's very dynamic, that's happening day to day. It's changing, and we're learning more about it. We'll be able to address some of that fact. And then employees, right? So now we're leading organizations, or we're part of organizations that are remote, that are in crisis. So what do we do? How do we communicate with employees? We'll then jump to fiction, and fiction is where we make up what's next. And I use the word making it up lightly. We do that every year in our business. We are always making things up. They're called assumptions, right? Assumptions are not facts. Assumptions are things that we made up to help us project what we're going to do next. And a lot of us are in that mode now, where we're dealing with the fact, but we're also working on the fiction. The fiction piece is, what are my scenarios and how do I forecast? What do I do about sales and selling? What do I do about marketing and messaging? Relationship management, employees, customers, partners, HR policies. What do I change in my company? How do I work with my organization? Not only my cash, but my financial buffer, the preparedness, right? The business continuity, technology, financial preparedness. These are all things that we have to make assumptions about in order to decide what to do. So to me, that's the fiction phase. This was a great slide that I found in a Medium post from Sequoia Capital, who's a venture investor. And this comes out from one of their portfolio companies who they didn't name. But speaking directly to fiction, right, the act of planning is more useful than the plan itself. And that's something really important to remember. Now, many of us do plans. We do annual plans. We revisit them quarterly. Well, right now we're replanning. Everyone who's joining us on this workshop this morning is replanning, and that's probably why you're here, trying to figure out, what are the facts and how do I figure out the fiction so I can actually move forward. So we're going to revisit these plans every week. You're going to come up with plans, and things are going to change, and you're going to revisit them. The thing I love about this is it maps out the scenarios. We talk about scenario analysis. Here's the 3 columns of the things that could happen, and here's the 3 rows of things I could do to change my business. And then all, there's a lot of data behind this graph, but it's a great structured way to think about, where do I focus? Like, how do I, which box am I going to be in, and how do I get things done? And then finally is the fantasy piece, right? It's the world of which we dream. And we know that we're in I've heard it called the new normal. We're in the new normal today. I don't love the term new normal, because I really, really hope that what we're experiencing right now isn't normal, that it's part of the curve that we're on, and we will be over the curve at some point. We can all debate upon on when when that is, and that's sort of part of the fiction that we're each going to have to make up, because that's an assumption that we have to make as we plan. But one of the things that struck me, a lot of what we're doing today to get through this crisis are really good things that we perhaps should have even been doing beforehand. So I think we all need to have optimism that there's a better world on the other side of all of this, right? Think about what you're doing to your business right now. We're reducing waste. We're becoming more efficient and more effective. We're looking at profits. We're working out of our comfort zone, right? There's just a survival context that I often talk about, that you don't grow and you lose opportunities when you stay in your comfort zone. We are all now forced out of our comfort zone. And as a coach, that's sort of where I like people to be. And as uncomfortable as it is, we're now there. We're all thinking about, when we think about new opportunities, we're thinking about expansion and virtualism, right? So we now have a world where it's really cool to work remotely. I mean, you know, as much as you love it or not, the fact is it's now a reality. How can we use sort of how can we expand our businesses and use virtual as a way to sort of become better businesses? Finally, a couple other points, and these are more on the personal side too. We've come together like never before. The fact is, isolation has brought us closer together, which is, you know, feels a little bit, you know, oxymoron, but we now realize we need each other. And that's why we're all here this morning. And that's something that, you know, in my fantasy world continues. And then also work-life balance. I will say that for the past 10 days, I have had dinner with my family every night. And I can't tell you when the last time that happened. I think maybe it was 20 years ago when my kids were 2 and I was not working. I don't know, but there's a work-life balance. People are going out for walks and runs and getting good night's sleep. I mean, unless your sleep is disrupted by the crisis, for many of us it is. But you know, we're catching up on life, and you know, that's a good thing. That's part of my fantasy world. So and I think there's a cycle, because not every business is affected the same way. So some of us may have businesses who might have not been immediately affected. You're not in the fact mode, you're in the fiction mode, right? It's like, all right, well, I'm going to figure out what to do next. So I think there's a cycle, because at some point, when we make it to fantasy mode, of course, then fantasy becomes the new fact, and then you're dealing with what's next. But there is a cycle here, and you may be each of us may be at a different part of the cycle. But I do think it's a cycle that we're going to continue to follow. So anyhow, I'm going to stop the presentation again, because I think PowerPoint kills the sharing of information. But I wanted to use this as a way of a framework for sharing with you guys a bunch of what we'll cover, and a lot of it will be with a fact and fiction, because I know that it's on everybody's minds right now, and hopefully we'll have some opportunity to discuss some of the what's to come after this. So we're gonna hit the stop sharing button so we can see everyone's beautiful faces again this morning. And so let me, hang on, I'm gonna close my presentation. All right, so with that being said, I'm gonna turn it over to each of the panelists to kind of make some, introduce themselves, make some introductory remarks. And I'm gonna look for my cursor too. I'm working on 2 screens. So Marcia, you want to, I know Marcia, you have a couple slides you want to share as well. You want to chat first, and then you tell me when to turn the slides on?
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. My name is Marcia O'Connor, and I am the CEO and founder of the O'Connor Group. We are a 13-year-old HR and talent acquisition consulting firm based in King of Prussia. As you can imagine, my HR team has been, I think, working around the clock right now. And obviously with the new Family Act that goes into effect actually April 1st, not April 2nd, like a lot of people think. And then we also have, hopefully, the new act, the Senate Act that got approved yesterday, but hopefully will get approved by the House today and hopefully signed off today too. But fingers crossed on that one. I can tell you right now, if you want to put Mike, my slides up real fast, that would be great.
I'm
And I'll talk about a few things. Yep. I can tell you offhand, the questions that we have been getting, one of them is basically working remote for a lot of people. That is brand new, and they're trying to make sure that they can keep continuity, they can keep teamwork, and ironically, you can go right next page, go down to like the page 3. One more, there you go. So we're going to talk about primarily employees, expenses, and compassion and all too. So we can go to next page 4. One of the big questions we're getting right now from a lot of my clients is a remote workforce, what works and all too. And we're trying to let people know that, you know, it's not as difficult as people think, but it's a new habit. And so the consistency is very important. Dedicated workspace is very important. Having strong Wi-Fi, how people don't have Wi-Fi at home and how that has been an issue. Prioritizing what is important, what's not important right now in everybody's agenda, the video conferencing, Zoom, obviously, if you don't have Zoom, you're almost on the out right now. So I think Zoom has taken over the world. We'll see. It's also working with the schools right now. And then also too, starting on time, ending on time. There's a lot of meetings that are being had right now. And I think it's really very important as leaders out there that you have these meetings, that you have a beginning and an end. And also making sure people eat. One of the problems I'm hearing right now is that people are so glued to their screens that they're forgetting to take breaks. They're forgetting to eat. They have a breakfast, then they have dinner, and they're just literally glued to the machine. So you as leaders have to make sure that your team is taking care of themselves during this time as well. And then respect boundaries and all too. Obviously, I'll put you on mute once in a while because my husband works in the next room and then my son works upstairs. And so you have to really respect boundaries right now because we're trying to get into a new normal that might be a new normal for 2 to 3 months. And then lastly, obviously workspace and all too, but this is my dining room and it works really well when it's sunny because a lot more light comes in here, but you got to make sure that you're taking care of that. That's a big question I've been asked regarding remote workforce. Number 2 is the next page, Mike. Employees. The biggest question we're hearing right now is furloughs, layoffs. Big difference between the two of them. A furlough, basically you're telling your employees that, hey, things are tight right now. I want you to stay with us and I can't pay you right now. Now furloughs, you can pay for medical insurance and life insurance, and there are some companies not paying for that too. So you need to be careful about that. And yes, they can get unemployment. Now, if this new law passes, hopefully, my fingers are crossed on this, I guess unemployment will react immediately. And so because of that, you're going to see basically a lot of people applying for it. Now with this new act too, they're going to add $600 more per week to basically unemployment. So instead of typically getting like $335 a week, you're going to get $935 a week. So we're just praying that that's going to work, because I don't know if you saw, but 3.3 million people filed for unemployment last week, which is insane. And to be honest with you, I think it was either 300 or 600,000 people alone in Pennsylvania, excuse me, filed for unemployment last week, like the most ever. So we're trying to take care of our employees. We're trying to figure out what's the best way of doing it. I've also heard, do I just give a 20% cut? Yes, you can do that as long as you can hold on to that as well. And then, you know, what happens with unemployment, people put in their salaries and all too. So it's really based upon their last salary. So you got to be really careful about how you decide these decisions and all too. But a layoff typically is like, a layoff is a layoff. And you know what, they're open to basically start looking for another opportunity. They can get COBRA and all too. And you got to be careful too, looking at your healthcare plans. All those plans are written differently, and some have rules, are flexible, and some aren't. So before you even have these layoffs and you're worried about people's benefits and all too, make sure you call your benefit providers to really read through that, because some benefits basically drop off the day you lay them off, and some basically not until the end of the month. So you want to make sure your people are covered. Okay. Another thing is retention. I think a lot of people are really worried about retention right now. I can tell you right now, the best thing you can do is have daily huddles with your team and really try to take care of them. I always do a pulse right now of basically, how are you feeling? I also do every day, good news. Tell me some good news, whether it be family, be work, or whatever. And it just really lightens the load a little bit, because everybody's so glued to the doom and gloom of the TV right now. So it's really our jobs as leaders to make sure that we can take care of that. And then also too, you know, just there is a difference between furlough and layoffs. And there's a perception that goes out there. A furlough means that you're part of my team. I'm still taking care of you. Yes, there's a chance that they could still go for another job out there, but you're doing the best you can to take care of these people. And as soon as this economy gets better, you're going to come back on my team. Now, typically a furlough is you have to have an end date, you know, as when this furlough will be done. We don't have end dates right now. So these rules have been changing. And furloughs typically is you basically are not supposed to even talk to that person or have them do any kind of work and basically eliminate their email. That's not happening. I have a lot of my good friends who are CEOs who put their people on furlough and are still having communication and are still basically talking to them and still basically sending out emails and all too. Technically, you're not supposed to do that, But I understand people are trying to save their businesses. So we're doing what we need to do to survive right now. So just a heads up out there. If you ask a lawyer, they would totally disagree with that because they're trying to protect what's basically said under furloughs. But a lot of rules have been changing, as we all know. Next page. And then expenses and all too. In regards, I know your people are your biggest expense. Your benefits are number two. You know, some people have employment agreements. Lots of times you can't just go on furlough with agreements and all too. So make sure you're talking to an employment attorney to make sure. I just had someone call me last night and just said, hey, I actually have a situation where I have these agreements where I have to pay this so much money if something happens. Make sure you talk to an employment attorney about those and all too, because they can get you some pretty big trouble there. And in regards to just extras and all too, the benefit side of the house, you know, if you do furlough, you're typically supposed to take care of your medical and also your life insurance. If you cannot do that, you let your employees know that it's okay to do that and still put them on furlough. Okay, next page. And the last thing, if I can't stress this enough, is compassion. The one thing I've seen a lot of times with these companies, the ones that are going to do really well and come back really fast are the ones that take care of their employees by having compassion, by listening to them, by reaching out to their customers, by making sure that everybody feels like they're in this together and all too, and having basically empathy. And there are some of my clients that are not doing that. They are not communicating out there. They are not touching base. They're more worried about themselves than their own people. That is not going to be good when things do turn around, and they will turn around. So if I can stress that at all to you, is basically pick up the phone and have daily conversations. My goal every day is to talk to 3 to 5 of my people every day, as well as 3 to 5 of my clients. Just checking in. How are you? What's going on? How are you feeling and all too? Because I'm telling you now, we do daily huddles, 15 minutes a day on Zoom. They have been instrumental. It actually calms them down. And today we're having a happy hour at 4 o'clock, and everybody has to have a drink in their hand or a glass of water, whatever is good for them. So it's really important to keep that together right now. And actually, I feel like we're tighter now than we were before. So you want to take this time, and I know it's a lot of effort on us because we're like the owners and all too, but it's really worth it. And that's a lot to be said, but that's it, Mike, from my end.
Thank you, Marcia.
You're welcome.
One of the things I leave on that note, something that I've always reminded leaders, people don't care what you think until they think that you care. And now more than ever, you know, we need to care for our employees. We need to care for our clients. We need to care for our partners and colleagues, you know, in addition to, of course, the caring that hopefully you're doing for your friends and family. Jeff, love to introduce yourself and share some of your thoughts on what's going on.
Sure. Thank you, Marcia. Thanks, Mike. So welcome everyone today. Jeff Bruno, founder, CEO of Your Outsourced CFO, about 7 years ago, 2013. I want to talk about briefly what we do a little bit, 2 seconds. We help small and medium-sized businesses sort of navigate through ups and downs, and primarily companies that want to look towards growing their business. This is a big down that we're engaged with a lot of our clients helping. I want to say that one thing I'm seeing here, I'm feeling as an opinion, this is a different type of scenario. This is a demand shock, not a system shock. So I feel the government is doing the right stuff right now as far as getting money in the hands of people and supporting small business to the tune that they can, because it's a trickle down effect. If people can't pay, 60 to 70% of the economy is driven by demand in the US. So if they can't pay, that's a trickle down effect. They can't pay their rent, that affects landlords. They can't pay their bills, so on and so forth. So I think by supporting that, it's the right move, what's going on here. Whereas in 2007-8, that was a system failure. This is a different type of scenario. So I really feel strongly this is the right move. I feel as a group, we should get together to support this. We should help our clients push through this. There will be another side of this. I'm a big believer. I am somewhat of an optimist, but I'm a big believer that you can get through this. There will be some businesses that cannot make it through this. But if you're strong enough and you have a good plan, I feel like you can get through this. These loans, I will talk specifically on some of these loans and programs that are coming out, what you could do. We'll send out links, posts. Most of you are probably already seeing a lot of this, but I can explain some of it. I would say that a plan is critical, as everybody's been mentioning, but please, 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 this is not a 2-month plan and then throw it all out the window and go. I mean, they're talking that this could happen again fall, winter, not to this extent, but that we could have a resurgence of this. So everybody has to have this in the back of their mind and plan consistently for further disruption. So that's pretty much my start here, but I will get in more detail shortly.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Lisa, good morning.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Lisa Peskin. I'm the founder and CEO of Business Development University. We're a sales and sales management training, coaching, and consulting company, but all I really care about at the end of the day with my clients is driving numbers. Spent 12 years over at ADP and been in sales for over 34 years. And what we're dealing with is unprecedented, as you all know. What my clients are really focusing on right now is how do we keep our existing clients? How do we deal with the pushback, them canceling, them not being able to pay? So how do we focus on our clients? How do we continue to get more prospects into our pipeline? And so many people think that this is not the time to do it. It's the perfect time to be doing it. And so we really got to focus on what our messaging is now. The fact of the matter is people are picking up their phone. I had one of my clients make 10 calls and 5 people picked up their phone. That's not typical. So there are opportunities here. We also have to figure out and help our clients with how to handle all these objections. How do we handle our clients trying to cancel or pull back or all that kind of stuff. The other thing is, this is a fantastic opportunity to continue to build our network. And yes, our new modality is the Zoom and calls, but there's so much we could be doing to solidify the relationships we already have and also to build new relationships. I'm having a lot of first meetings with people that are building my network. But the most important thing, and I say this is half the success in sales, but it's really half of success in our lives. And it's this and this. It's our attitude and our motivation. So right now, it's so difficult for us all. We're scared about our loved ones and health and our business, but it's the strong ones that are going to maintain the right attitude and stay motivated, because the fact of the matter is there's 2 categories. One category of people that are going to say, woe is me, I can't do this, I can't do that, and kind of shut down. And then there's going to be those of us, and I'm guessing it's all of you because you've decided to invest 2 hours of your time this morning. But there's those of us who are going to say, okay, we don't have control about everything that's going on, but we do have control how we're going to handle it. And we're going to figure out what we need to do each and every day so that when we're on the back end, we're in the best position as possible. So my focus right now is first helping sales folks, any sales professionals, non-selling professionals. What do I do now? And in fact, for those of you who might want to take a deeper dive, I'm having a sales therapy session at 12 o'clock and a sales leader therapy session at 2 o'clock. But the sales leaders, how do I motivate my folks when they're all working remotely? How do I know that they're still working? How do I still hold them accountable? And how do I keep their head screwed on straight? So there's a lot of tools that I have. I'm not putting anything up on the screen. If anybody wants to go check out some of these tools that might be helpful for their salespeople right now, you go to my website, businessdevelopmentuniversity.com, and go to the utensils. Throughout today, I might be referring to some of those tools, but they're easy to find and they're easy to download. But right now, we as leaders have to kind of tell everybody, we're going to be there with you. Just Marcia, it's so impressive what you're doing with your huddles. I mean, you've done it before this, so, but even more important for us to do it now and really make sure that we're treating our employees and our contractors as people. And don't try to sugarcoat what's going on. Show them that you care, as we all talked about, and really help them through these tough times. But there are opportunities for all of us. And I know I'm looking at what can we do now to be the best we can when this thing is over.
Lisa, thanks so much. So we're gonna dive into questions. I realized at some point that I never really introduced myself because I guess I'm arrogant enough to think everybody always knows me. But I'm Mike Krupit. I'm the founder of Trajectify. We are a leadership development and a business growth coaching firm. And so we've been around, like Jeff, about 7 years. 2013 we started, and I am blessed to have Marcia and Jeff and Lisa and their expertise. As we partner with one another and try to help our communities through this challenging time, as well as to help our own communities even when things aren't challenging, because it does take a village. I want to make one other note that we're going to take some questions. We'll take them live. If you guys don't have questions, I've got a whole list of questions right here by my side that I can ask, and the panel will discuss them. If it's on your mind, it's probably on everyone else's mind, or many of us. There was, I do want to say though that some of the questions we're happy to take live. We are recording this webinar, and we will share slides and links and a copy of the recording with everybody who participates for you to publicly distribute if you want to your team or your colleagues. So if there's anything that you miss, we'll try to capture it for you. But if you do ask a question live, just know that you're being recorded, even though it's somewhat anonymous because you don't have to use your real name. So with that in mind, one of the things, I know there was one question posted, and Marcia answered it offline in the Q&A window. But Josh, do you want to? Josh, I'm going to open up your microphone here and see if you want to share your question live. Hey, are you there, Josh? You might be on your mute. Hey. Okay. Well, all right. Josh, can you hear us?
Yes.
All right, we can hear you now. Okay, good.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. There was some weird setting, I think.
I think that's the new slogan for the week. You're on mute. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that this week.
So yeah, Marcia, thank you for looking at that and responding. So we have been primarily a remote environment for a while, and I think one of the things that we come up against is how do we get people to feel connected? How do we bring levity into a space where it's easy to be so transactional? And so I was looking for ways within the huddle that you recommend, and I like that recommendation. How do we make it not just business? How do we connect people?
To be honest with you, it got really funny because last week we had heard that in order to find some of these kids' pictures, that their parents got involved. So one of my girls, Colleen, said, my mom's like into your games, because we have a game every day. We have something to look forward to. And she's like, and on a Friday, she goes, my mom's wondering what the games are for next week, because she was running around the house and trying to find all this stuff, and it keeps her busy. And so we actually made it a very family event. So it's been a lot of fun to do it, but you got to think of a week in advance. And every Sunday night, I put out basically, sorry, allergies this morning are bad. I put out basically what we're going to do for the following week. And so people really look forward to all that, because the next thing I forgot yesterday was pet day. And then all of a sudden I had my Zoom and all these dogs and cats are in the pictures. And I was like, crap, I don't have a cat or dog. And so I actually have, don't ask, but I actually have this massively, hold on, I'll show it to you. This massively huge chocolate turkey. Don't ask me why I have one. But my aunt gave it to me thinking for some reason I could use it before all this happened. So that was my pet of the day compared to theirs. But you got to make it fun.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's we're all still human, right? I mean, even though we're struggling with issues around fear and uncertainty, and our employees are, people are worried about their livelihoods, their ability to sort of their health, right? I mean, these are all pretty important and serious considerations, but we're all still human, and we need to be able to smile in the face of adversity, to be cliche, but there's a lot of truth to that. So, you know, as long as we know when to put our smiles on and when to put our serious faces on, I think we'll be okay. And the way I'm hearing clients do happy hours where, you know, they do +1s. So bring someone from your household or a pet or something with you to your happy hour. The huddles themselves. So a lot of companies I'm hearing are doing the 15-minute daily huddles, and the, man, why couldn't we do that before? Right? You know, 15 minutes once a day. And it doesn't have to be status, right? Especially if you've got 50 or 60 or 100 more people in your company. It's not practical for that to be a status meeting, but just to share information. Here's what you need to know, or here's someone we want to highlight, or here's some thanks, or here's something, but just to all come together once a day to do a quick check-in. And it could be remote, right? We often have people working in the field or on the road or working from home. Everyone has those programs in place before this to some extent. So now we're all remote, but why, you know, we could have been doing it before. Let's keep doing it because there is some benefit to it. But in the spirit of engaging your employees, you can't stop doing the things that are good for you. In fact, you have to double down and do them more. The other thing, I mean, I'll piggyback off of your question, Josh, your one-on-ones with your team. Some people weren't doing them enough. Some people were doing them. Some people are doing them to not doing them at all. And what we want to do is now you want to do them more often. And these one-on-ones are not just tell me what you're working on and I'll tell you whether you're doing a good job. It's really about the personal engagement with your employees, the performance feedback, soliciting feedback from them, understanding where they are in their life and where they are in profession, and are you as an employer helping them get there. So I have people who are doing that with their team members once a month or once every other week. They've gone to every week, and they're doing half-hour or even 20-minute virtual sessions just to engage with employees.
Hey, Mike, there's another question out there. Do you see that in regards to I don't know, Jeff, do you want to answer that one to start off with?
Is it in the chat? Oh, okay. I see another question.
Another question?
Oh,
that was from Amanda.
Yeah, you want me to?
Yeah, I can read it. I see it.
Yeah, I can also turn Amanda on if she wants to answer it live. But once we answer the question offline, I can't make the person live as easily. But hang on. Oh, and I invited you to ask your question live.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
So what I said is I'm not celebrating the current unemployment bill, which is, I believe, currently 60% plus the $600 a week. So for those of us that have workers making under $19 an hour, I own a lead generation firm, and I'm not hiring people with college degrees necessarily, but they make a good living, and they're smart and articulate. But the bottom line is that it could be seen as easier not to work and just take unemployment. So does anyone know the best resources to find out the details of how to keep the staff? So right now I have them as part-time, but basically I'd like to make them whole with a small business grant. They're not working the other few hours a day, but keeping them off unemployment. And I've been basically guys, just hang with me so far. I know that, you know, you go collect partial unemployment right now, but hang with me so far because I don't want to lose them to unemployment.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I could speak to that, and then in a little bit going through the rest of it. Absolutely. So this is all new as of we've been talking about yesterday, and I'll get a little bit detailed here because it's important. So what we're seeing with this, the government law called the CARES Act that just came out, is that they are going to cover employees that you had to let go, decrease in pay to the full amount of their pay. It looks like they're going to do it for about 2 months, 2.5 months, in some cases 3 months, from sort of early February through June. And the way they're doing that is they're doing it through a loan program. Mm-hmm. So they're doing it through the 7A SBA program. So let me be clear on that. There's the 7A SBA program that's been around forever. That's the normal program that the SBA has. This is an adjunct to that, that the government is supporting. So the way they're getting it faster to people is by that program. So it's through banks. Banks will be doing this for businesses. So I recommend, I'm going to get more details, but I recommend you go to your current bank to get it. They are going to be servicing their clients first. Now, these are banks. Banks help businesses, but banks are in for a profit consistently. And there are things about this loan that could potentially not be forgivable in the future and will sit on the bank's balance sheet. So be careful here of what's going on, because the banks are not necessarily going to be just handing out money here. They're going to evaluate this as well, along with evaluating other loans they give. This will be much less evaluated than other scenarios because of the government guarantee, at least in the beginning. The guarantee will start to fall off of this loan after 2020. It comes down from 100% guarantee to 85 and 75% in some cases, which is the standard SBA guarantee. But that throws that risk parameter back on banks. So they are still evaluating this, because the calculation the government is coming out with to what they're going to forgive on this loan and cover for the banks and repay the banks is not clear yet. So what they're saying is that they will, for employees or contractors count, that were employed or had to be cut as part of a key part of your business. So could it be people that were working at part-time or whatever that is? You can bring them back, and you can bring them in full. And for that period of time, they will cover payroll costs, benefits, commissions for salespeople, which is good for the people who Lisa's working with, interest on mortgage, rents, utilities, and interest on debt. Not principal, but interest on debt. So that is what this program is going to do. How you calculate what it is. You look at your last 12 months average monthly payroll for your business, 12 months, going back from March, 12 months. 2.5 times your average payroll is what the government will loan to you through banks.
Why?
2.5 times.
Why not one time?
Well, it's up to 2.5 times. So of what they'll do of your payroll. So if you have $100,000 a month payroll, they'll do 2.5 times that as the loan. So 250,000. Okay.
Okay, great.
So here's the great thing about these loans. It's different than the other SBA stuff. This is the critical piece of this new thing, is that it's no fees, no personal guarantee, no collateral, and the government is capping the interest at 4% that the banks can charge. So that is a very, very friendly situation.
Sorry, I'm unclear. You just said 4%, but I thought it was a grant.
No, it is not a grant. Let's be clear.
Oh.
It is a loan. They are going to forgive part of the loan at the end of the year. This is the other piece. So you have to track exactly what you're using the loan funds for. Precisely track it, not just in your P&L on your QuickBooks, but precisely track what you're using those funds for when you hire back people, and what your rent support is, and so on and so forth. I'm going to stay current with my rent, so I'm going to use it for the next 2.5 months for my rent, for my employees, what you're using that for. And then at the end of the year, the government has some calculation it's going to do that's going to say, yep, this is forgiven for you. We're going to pay the bank back for you, and it's gone. It's off your books. But we don't know how that's going to shake out yet. So it is still a loan right now. It's not a grant, but here's what it is. It's a 10-year repay. So let's say the government does some calculation, you get $200,000, and they say, you know what, you only spent 150 of that on what was deemed allowed to be used for the crisis. So we'll forgive that, but 50, your bank's going to hold as a loan. It's a 10-year amortization on that loan at that time, at a max 4% interest. 10-year amortization. So, I mean, you're talking maybe $5,500 a year to repay that loan. So very, very affordable construct for most small business owners here, which is good. So I highly am recommending, this is what it looks like. So we're starting to recommend as an outsourced CFO firm to businesses to really analyze the essential people they need on the operations side. If they had to let some salespeople go, to potentially bring those salespeople back, if you know, so that you can hit the ground running here when this crisis starts to abate and be ready. I would say that you don't have to bring all your workforce back if you were overstaffed or whatever, assuming you were at a growth level. But you need to rehire some people, and I would highly recommend doing that to get some of this loan forgiveness. So that's a very important thing that has come out. Hopefully that answers your question.
Great. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
Marcia, did you have anything to add on, regarding, I mean, part of the initial question was, people taking unemployment as a way out as opposed to, sticking with a tough situation at work, right? Was that, Amanda, that was part of your initial question?
Well, particularly if they're making under 19 an hour to begin with.
Have you seen that with any of your clients?
Yeah, I think it's just being really honest with them and all too. I have one client of mine that had 27 people, and he brought it up to a bunch of our I'm part of EO too, so we were talking all about it. And unfortunately, he said, I don't really have a choice. I have cash. He goes, but if it goes longer than 3 months, he's like, I'm not going to have a company. So he actually had a one-on-one conversation with each of his employees. Say, we're going to put you on furlough. We're doing the best we can. I realize that, yes, you could leave and go someplace else, but I hope you don't. So he is going across the lines. He is having conversations with them still. He's still doing Zooms with them. Technically, as a furlough, you're not supposed to have any contact at all. But you know what? We're doing different things differently right now to stay alive. And I don't think anybody's really going to come against him on that. And so far, everybody's pretty much on the same boat. And one of his people I'm good friends with. So it's been helping a lot to do something like that. But being honest and being compassionate about how things really are is really going to go much longer than you think.
But one more piece I'll add to that, Mike, to your question. It was Amanda.
Yes.
That I honestly, this is a 3 to 4 months. I think it's 3 or 4 months that the government's doing this $600 additional support. So yeah, it's a lot more money for those people. But if you're offering them the full time, which in theory should be the same or more at that level, you want the employees that are going to be there to help your company and grow their own situation. And we're talking 3 or 4 months of support. So if they don't want to stick around for the same level, then it doesn't make any sense for your business. Then they're not energized to help support your business, in my opinion. So.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks, Marcia. Thank you, Amanda. I realize we in all the excitement to talk, we haven't launched any of the polls. So I'm going to click the button to launch the first poll, right? Where is your business located? Just so that if we give any information about public, about programs, at least we have a sense for where people are coming from. So if you're online, and we've got 37 people now here, in addition to the panelists. And I imagine everyone's seeing the poll on the screen. Panelists, can you see the poll on the screen? Do you see the poll too? Okay. By the way, this is the first poll I've ever tried in Zoom, so I had no idea how it works. So thanks, Matt, for setting it up. And now we know how it works. And apparently we don't have anyone from California or Europe on the call. Okay, super. And one other, so we still have votes coming in. I'm going to end it in a moment because I want to put up the second poll because I wanted to get a sense for people's backgrounds, what role you play in your organization. All right, so it looks like it's, the Philadelphia burbs, the city of Philadelphia looks like it's got the strongest, but it's close to, the Philly burbs in New Jersey. Welcome to our one New Yorker. And the somewhere else, I guess that could be California. We'll imagine you're coming from somewhere exotic, somewhere else. All right, super. I'm going to launch one more poll. There we go, the Philly one. Hang on, let's see if I can. Oh, all right, and the one other, let's see, stop sharing the polls and just looking for my mouse so I can hit the polling button. There we go. I'm going to launch. There we go. All right, now I know how it works. Sorry. So there's the second poll. What your role is in your business. This would have been the perfect time for a meditation. Everyone's so quiet. I love it. Get that, you know, talk for 45 minutes, quiet for 2 minutes thing. All right, super. So it looks like we have the most of business owners, service providers out there, and then people in leadership roles and sales and marketing and finance. But we've got about a third of us who are participating today own the business, and about a fifth of us are service providers. Super. I'm going to close that poll, and we've got So this is not a demographic question, but we're interested in. I'm just going to. Okay, so now it's launched everyone can see the results there. Sorry, it took a moment. I didn't realize Zoom was going to slow down. I'm going to launch the third poll. This poll is how much does it hurt right now? And so now we're away from the demographics, but how much are you in pain? Are you out of business? Is it grave? Do you not have a clue? You don't know.
Hey, Mike, when they're done, there's another question out there too.
Yep. Yes, sir. And we'll stop the polling with this one and go back to the Q&A. It's interesting. It looks like a normal curve here, which is, I guess, what we'd expect with enough participation. Well, although no one on the call so far seems to see this as being good for their business, right? The beneficial, and it's also interesting that people don't know, right? It's if you're paralyzed in fear, so to speak, or you haven't thought about it, which is hard to imagine. Nobody's in that category either. All right, super. I'm going to close this poll. Thanks for her participation. If you're the one person who said it was grave, if you want to talk about that, like raise your, in the participants window, I think that or in the bottom of the screen, I think there's a button to raise your hand. If you want to kind of if you kind of want to raise your hand, if you're open to chatting about it and talk about, you have specific questions, we'd love to address some of your concerns while we're all here together. But if you don't, I didn't hit the end polling, but if you don't, I certainly understand that as well. If you're in a grave situation, I would imagine you've already dealt with a lot of what you need to deal with. Okay, thanks for that. And those will be when we share all of the recordings and stuff, all this data. I believe chat and polls and stuff come along with the recording. All right, so I'm going to go back to the questions. We got some more financial question here. So Matt, I've invited you to.
I see it. I can jump in.
Yeah, I opened it up to Matt. Matt, if you want to ask your question live, I got the invite out to you.
Matt, if you're on or not, I see I can jump in. I see your question on text here. So happy to start into it to not delay this. So
there we go. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right. Yeah. So thanks, Jeff, for jumping in there. But this is kind of a three-part question, and I'm glad you guys can see it. But I guess the first two parts, surround the new SBA, the new SBA emergency COVID-19 program, and then as Jeff talked about, the existing 7A. The first part of the question, of course, relates to whether, and I don't know if anyone knows the answer to this yet or not, but whether someone, an entity, a company, business owner can pursue both the traditional 7A program and the emergency COVID-19 loan program. And then the second part of the question is, does anyone have any sense or guidance, even if it's preliminary, about whether pre-revenue or low revenue, early stage revenue, VC or angel-backed companies can pursue both or either SBA program?
Sure.
And there's a third part to that. It's kind of more of a procedural type question.
Yes, I see it. I can speak to it, Matt.
Thanks, Jeff.
Welcome, sir. So here's what I'm finding on this too. So according to the COVID government plan, you cannot have other SBA loan applications pending. That's what they're saying. Now, that might be when this thing passes. I don't know. It could be a timing issue. So if people were scrambling to do SBA stuff before, that might be okay. I don't know. It's kind of like everybody's throwing things together here. So I'm not sure if that's the case or not, but I would highly recommend that you get your advisors, accountants, CFO group like us, whoever, to help you navigate through this. Because or Matt, you're very strong in this area as well, but you got to be careful what you're asking for here, so that you make sure you get the best benefit. And the COVID plan is forgiven, whereas the other SBA plans are loans, and they are typically collateralized loans. So the other thing is the one other piece with the SBA. I do believe that you could go the conventional SBA route and not do the COVID as well, if you'd like to, for sure. So, and yes, answer number two, pre-revenue, not pre-revenue. You need revenue. You need to have revenue and been in business since, I think they're going as early as February to be in business, but you do need some revenue and some cost in there. Or very low revenue is fine. Early stage companies are okay. And if they're investors, that's fine. They will accept that. They just want explanation on what's going on. So the more information, the better. They will accept that. That's what I got directly from the SBA. So advice on a company that has drawn a substantial amount of dollars on a letter of credit or a line of credit.
Yes,
they're out of compliance with bank covenant. That's a little bit of the Wild West and sort of unknown right now. So we've been advising people to pull down their lines for that. We're trying to keep companies in covenant, if possible. But I think banks are going to be understanding here, at least for the next few months on that. I would agree with your comment. They will probably be understanding, but my stance is always to be proactive and stay ahead of it, especially if you've had a relationship with the bank. So.
No, thanks, Jeff. That's great advice. Excuse me. And that's the advice I've given my client in this particular situation. They've been out of compliance for, beyond a year. I've been engaged with them for just less than a year. And since the beginning of my engagement, I've advised them that, let's work here in good times at the time to get in compliance, even if that means getting a reworked loan agreement to be obtaining covenants that are very achievable for the organization. Like a lot of family-run businesses, in good times, they feel they didn't want to rock the boat. Long-standing relationships, et cetera, with the bank didn't feel the need. So now you're in a situation where, the bank has assured us proactively, the bank that is, don't worry, guys. We're here for you. Didn't speak to the covenant or anything, but I'm trying to stress to this organization that even if these longstanding relationship managers remain their relationship managers and continue to be employed by the bank, they may have their arm twisted at some point, depending how bad this gets, that their loan committee forces, God forbid, a call on the loan. And I said, secondly, worse yet, potentially, is these folks may not be relationship managers in 3, 6, 9 months because of the bank's own economy or economic situation. So, I share your opinion, Jeff, that, I think it's better to be proactive and say, we trust that you guys won't harm us, but better to validate and trust. So let's, let's see if we can come to a workable agreement for the bank, but lighten our covenants so we don't have that anxiety of knowing that we're out of compliance.
Yes, correct.
So, okay, great. Thank you.
Surely.
And happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday. Mike, we can't hear you. If you're chatting.
Unmute yourself, Mike.
There you go, Mike.
Right, and you can't see I'm muted myself because I'm doing it right at the microphone. Josh, you also had a question about loans. So while we're just on that topic,
Sure.
You want to ask it, Josh?
Sure. Yeah. I think so, Jeff. Just some context on our business. We're a custom packaging business, and so we have a lot of money tied up in inventory, tied up in things that might not even arrive for 6 months. And it has always been my intention. It's been my intention for a while to get a substantial line of credit, just so that we can pursue some of the bigger opportunities that are coming down our line. We've been depending on our vendors who have, who do have those substantial lines of credit to support us with some of our bigger opportunities, and that's worked out. I'm not sure if now is the time or not to really pursue this, specifically, again, with relationships to those bigger opportunities. It feels like we should be pursuing those directly, rather with the degree of support that we're getting from our vendors. Again, just chasing a larger margin there. I'm interested, first of all, is that making sense? Second of all, do you have any thoughts on if now is the time to chase those things? Should we be looking for a line of credit? And then there are just some follow-up questions there that I would probably.
Sure. So yeah, I can be quick on this. Sure. I would absolutely look for a line of credit. You never know. I mean, there's a ton of liquidity flooding into the market right now. So absolutely look for a line of credit. I mean, hopefully shortly the worst is behind us and banks are going to start saying, look, we want to support you back to growth. There are other ways to get a line. You can get some banks do their preferred lender for the SBA. So on the conventional way, they will do SBA lines and up to $350,000. That is uncollateralized function. So that is a great way to get a line that you are using that is government backed right now, not forgiven, government backed. So that banks will lend more freely for that. That could help you. You can get that on top of any current banking you have, most likely. It's going to be dependent on cash flow. You need the cash flow historically to support it, or the banks will not lend it. But that is one option. I definitely recommend going for lines. It's better for inventory purposes, for sure. As your business ebbs and flows through this, you're probably sitting on a bunch of inventory and you got to offload it. I do love the idea of using your vendors for credit, but that can. They're going to get tight here as well. So they might push back a little. So, and certainly compare banks in that scenario, but go to your bank first. Hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. I think the other smaller question there was, is there anything in particular that we should be doing to present ourselves to the banks to appear favorable?
Oh, absolutely. Budgets, forecasts. Banks want to see forecasts. They want to see, they just don't want historical is important, but they want to see forecasts. How is this company preparing to get through this crisis and get to the other side of it? So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Mike, can't hear you. You're on mute again.
Man, I'll get used to this one day. Sean, I know Sean is one of the from everywhere else, somewhere else. Sean's from California. Sean had a statement in the questions. I wasn't sure if you had a question related to it. If you want, raise your hand and I'll kind of hand over the mic to you. In the meantime, let me launch while we get a few more questions in. Otherwise, I'll pull from my list. I'm going to launch one other poll here. Right, asking if you could pick one concern, and I know you have more than one concern, but what's your most important, your biggest concern? So it's looking like we've got half of the participation so far in the poll, but it looks like we're pretty evenly split with cash, which is understandable, especially based on some of the questions we're hearing. Sales, and we're gonna start talking about that, I think, soon. There's some questions coming in about sales and long-term planning, and that is completely understandable given the fact that the title of this workshop is Leading in Uncertainty, and uncertainty sort of creates questions about how to plan. All right, so for the sake of moving things on, I'm going to end this poll. I think it automatically shares the results. So clearly, cash is the winner here, but certainly sales and planning are issues. So, Sean, I see your hand raised. I'm going to turn the mic over to you, Sean.
So just very briefly, we have a client that runs a tutoring service, and they've seen a huge uptick in demand. So it's not a good time for people, but I think that there are bright spots. And I think you have to be alert to those. You have to figure out what parts of your business might actually, I don't know how to put it exactly, where the opportunities are going to be in the face of a tremendous number of challenges.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the what I framed as fantasy. Some businesses get to start at fantasy. Like if you work for Zoom, you started at fantasy mode, right? It's like, oh man, we are now relevant. We are, so I think there are remote tutoring businesses. Clearly, I was sharing yesterday, in fact, the local, one of our local school districts sent a message home. We know your kids are working remotely, but to make sure that the parents didn't think they were getting a great education, they said it won't count though, right? So, in a sense, the underlying note there was, we're just doing we're doing this so we can collect funding so we can count these school days, but don't worry, we won't count this. But think about all the parents who said, we do want our kids to have good educations. And so it matters to us, it counts to us. And these are the ones who are going out and getting potentially tutoring or supplementing their kids' education. So I can easily see how your education company would be, your tutoring company would benefit from the current scenario. And thank you for joining us from California, Sean. I know you've got some early mornings you've done this week. Sean, anything else? I'll take that as a no. Okay.
I'm good. Sorry. No, I muted again. Sorry. No.
No. Okay. All right. No worries. Thanks, Sean. we have another question from Josh, and look, I love the fact, Josh, that you're participating so much, and I encourage everyone to participate as much as Josh. So let me, Josh got a question about sales. And thank you. I mean, this is, let me, there we go. All right, Josh, I think the mic's turned over to you.
Yep, I'm here again. Hi. So while I got you all in front of me, I'm gonna make full use. So Lisa, our organization has been fortunate to just have a lot of leads coming in and really good ones, and they seem to be picking up. Obviously, at the moment, we have a lot of silence, or at least there's a lot more space than there used to be. Previously, and especially now, it strikes me that we should have some skill set in active sales and reaching out and creating new opportunities. But now in particular seems like a good time for that. I'm struggling with how to make that transition where we're so entrenched in this kind of like, no, it's all right, they'll come to us. How do we make that transition?
That's a great, and Josh, what type of business are you in?
So we sell custom packaging. We're primarily an importer and distributor.
Okay. Oh, actually, my packaging company is thriving right now. But that's a great question, and I think a lot of us are facing that. You know, we've had the leads coming in, sales have been great, and all of a sudden they've stopped. What do we do? Well, the first thing I'm going to say, Josh, is not everything works for everybody and not everything works in every situation. So we've got to try different things and see what's going to work the best. I highly recommend. How many sales folks do you have there, Josh?
We really just have one, but we have a support team that could also potentially be doing some of that work.
Okay. All right. So the best way for us to get business is to get referrals from our existing clients and from our network. So I would make sure that you're focusing on those two areas first. So on the website, I'm not going to bring it up here, but there's two forms or two tools that might be really helpful. One is a client visit checklist that would be great for your support people, and the other one is a networking visit checklist for those people that might be able to refer business. So I would first start with your existing clients, and I call the concept, I have a little prop here, squeezing the lemon, making the most of all the conversations that we have. So when we're talking to our existing clients and before we get off the phone, is there anything else we could be doing for you? Nope, you guys have been wonderful. Before I let you off, I have a big favor to ask. We're always looking for other companies like yourself that we might be able to help out. And so many companies right now are finding that their packaging suppliers are not able to actually keep up with the demand. So do you know of anybody that for some reason their suppliers aren't able to keep up with their demand, that it might make sense for me to have a preliminary conversation with, so that if they do get stuck, we could be a backup alternative? That's one very easy approach. The other thing is for your folks to proactively go into LinkedIn and see who else that they're connected to. That way, instead of just asking for an open-ended referral, we could say, oh, I saw you used to work over at JJ Foods. That would be a great referral for me. Would you mind making an introduction on my behalf? That would be phenomenal. So first clients, then our network. Who are the vendors of our existing clients? Those are great people that are good centers of influences. So when you're talking to your clients, ask them, are there any vendors that you work with that might make sense for me to have a conversation with? So I would definitely do that, because then you could get into centers of influences. So for instance, if you're a bank, an accountant, financial planner, or what Jeff does, who's your banker, who is your accountant, right? Those are all great people to be able to talk to and build those relationships right now, especially in your line of work, Josh. There are so many companies. I know my packaging companies, they're they're really thriving right now. So I'm really happy for them. And then the last piece is, what kind of outreach can we do? So again, one of the tools that you guys might want to check out, it's called the BView Wheel of Fortune, and it represents everything that an individual or company could do to get business coming in. I would take a look. Does it make sense to start doing blogs? Does it make sense to start doing webinars? Do you want to do an email campaign? And are there certain people that we might want to reach out to proactively? So does that help you, Josh?
Yeah, that's super helpful. Thank you. You referred to a few things I didn't get the full names of, but would you mind just posting links?
Oh, absolutely. We'll send it, but it's the prospect visit checklist, the client visit checklist, and the Wheel of Fortune. But we'll get all of you all of these tools.
Yeah, so I had Matt to post it right now in the chat, your link to your utensils page, and we'll send it as a follow-up in an email.
And the great thing is, guys, they could all be downloaded in a Word version or Excel version, so you could take it and modify it for your particular business. So my goal was to create these tools that you could just tweak a little bit that really could be helpful for you.
Great. Yeah, thanks so much, Lisa.
Oh, you're welcome, Josh.
I'm gonna. We've got about a half hour left. I'm going to. We want more questions. If not, I'm going to go into my other questions. Want to talk more about people, and I have questions about sales. Oh, and by the way, Lisa, so like, I mean, this week, you know, while we all, especially if you're a service provider, you have clients who are questioning. You know, we cut contractors first, so people all think, you know, who can I keep? Who do I need to keep? Who do I not? But I'm going to close 2 new deals this week. And, you know, deals that, in fact, one was in the pipeline prior, one wasn't. And, you know, it surprised me, but business is still happening, right? And it didn't surprise me because it's a great deal, right? It's a mutually beneficial opportunity. But the surprise is that even amidst the chaos, there are people who are leaning into their businesses and continuing to make investments and continuing to move forward, because how can you not? Because we know whether we're in a recession or not, and that's actually one of the questions I put down was, you know, are we in a recession, and how do we know, and is it, you know, how long does it last? That might be on some people's minds. There was an article about it in the paper this morning. But we know that the businesses that start during a recession or that grow during a recession are the businesses that ultimately have the strongest foundation and are the most successful. And so we see that happening now. Businesses, people are pushing forward, and deals are getting done. And so we shouldn't be afraid to continue selling, to your point, Lisa.
And I actually just want to bring up 2 more things. The first one is, I've been in sales for 34 years. And if you count my waitressing days, it's 40 years. So I'm totally aging myself. But I believe that nobody in this whole wide world likes to be sold anything. And I think we all have to try to stop selling our stuff. But it's all about helping. So the reason why you got those 2 contracts is because they believe you could really help them through this time period. Marcia, I'm sure that so many companies are coming to you. You mentioned you had a webinar yesterday with over 700 people. They need your help. Jeff, the same thing, and a lot of you out there. So I had a client said to me, do you think if I start prospecting, they're thinking I'm desperate? I'm like, no, I think it's all about reaching out to them to see if you can help them out. The other point I want to make is a lot of us are experiencing clients saying, oh, I got to stop your service right now, or I don't have the funds. Well, we've got to push back just slightly on these people. There's 2 techniques to be able to do that. One is the oldest sales technique in the world for objection handling, which is feel, felt, found. I understand how you feel. In fact, a lot of my other clients have been calling me and saying the same exact thing. But what they're realizing is that this is the very worst time to stop supporting and focusing on, I'll use my example, on your sales folks. This is where we need to double down, because the good companies and the smart companies are going to be focusing on what we can do right now and build our pipeline so when this does get on the back end. So we've got to push back. And the other thing, that technique was a feel, felt, found, but there's also boomerang. This is exactly the wrong time to be doing that. So whatever their objection is, kind of flip it around on them, but there are ways to push back, and there are other things we could do with our clients. Maybe we say to them, you know what, we'll change the terms so you can pay me on the back end when this is all, you know, over with. So some companies could afford to do that, or we might be able to switch up our offerings a little bit. So instead of doing individual coaching, maybe we're doing group coaching. So can we look at our business and say, oh, right now, if I can't be in front of audiences, then what's the next best thing that I could do to still help our clients out?
Can I jump in on that, actually? Because I agree with Lisa wholeheartedly in the sense of, one, plan correctly, use the tools the government's giving you to plan correctly, support your salespeople, because yes, this is going to rebound. So use some of that money to support that so you can hit the ground running hard. I totally agree with that, but it's about keeping your business alive. So make sure you plan correctly to do that. And is this the time, Mike? A couple other important things I wanted to get out there. Okay.
It's never a bad time.
All right, good. So I just want to get this out before we run out of time. So very important, Lisa. That's great stuff. And I want to say there's one thing more, the government piece that's very important for a lot of business owners. They are allowing you to stop Social Security payments through payroll tax. So they're allowing you to postpone that for the entirety of the rest of the year. That's 6.2% of your payroll monthly that you pay in tax for your employees as an employer. It's the payroll tax. They're letting you suspend that. You have $100,000, that's $6,000, that's $72,000 a year of savings you can do if it's a full year. It's not a full year at this point, but so you don't have to.
Jeff, do you have to apply for that, or will your payroll providers do that?
Your payroll providers will do it, but you have to talk to them, tell them you want to do it, and so on and so forth. So I highly recommend you go to your payroll providers and do that immediately. If you want, it'll save you cash. You have to track it. The payroll companies are so far saying they're not going to track it. I don't know if ADP is going to come out and change that or something, but right now they're saying you have to track it because half of it has to be repaid by December 2021, half of it. The other half has to be repaid by December 2022. So the government's giving you more than 2 years to repay this, 2 years and 8 months to repay this. So that's great, but you have to track it. And then government's gonna come after you a couple years later and ask you for all the money. So I'm sure that's what'll happen. So again, it's all about tracking. One other important thing, local and state. There's a ton of stuff coming out right now, local and state as well. Philadelphia, will send links, has a great program through PIDC, $5,000 grant if you're a business under 500,000. Grant, $25,000 grant for a business from 500,000 to 3 million. If you qualify, you could get that. That's right now. It's already oversubscribed, so I would hurry and get in there. It's everybody's jumping in there. And $100,000 loan for businesses north of 3 million. I think it caps at 5 million. Jersey has a similar program that just was announced this morning. Not Jersey, I'm sorry. Jersey, the state of Jersey, yes, has a program similar to Pennsylvania's program that just came out as well. That just in the last day or two, those programs have come out for loans of 100,000 in a similar scenario. So look at those, apply to those. We'll send all the links, but those all can help, and those are separate from SBA. So those are state and local financed. And that was the last info I wanted to get.
Jeff, so I wonder, so, different businesses, different locations, and everything at the local, state, and federal level. Haven't heard anything about county programs, right? But maybe counties don't have money, but right, municipal and state and federal. Is there a resource where we could go to learn about all of those, right? Because it feels like it's like every program has a different application, a different website, and a different advocate.
So it's typically your county, actually, that you bring up county, that's kind of running the state funds. Okay. So Montgomery County, Bucks County, PIDC, Philadelphia Industrial Development Corporation in Philadelphia County is running the local and the state. So they are a great resource. I could throw out Ronette is the contact over there and they send out links. We could also send that around to people. PIDC is a great resource. We are partnered with them in Philadelphia. We've done a lot of work with them over the last few years. They're a great resource. So federally, I mean, that's more with your accountants, your bankers, and your whoever can help you get that done. An online application.
Great, thank you, Jeff. I want to launch one quick poll. This is on a scale of 1 to 10. How confident you are that you're going to come out of this stronger? Well, our group today skews optimistic, so that's exciting, right? You know, you know, it's like one of those things. It's one of the moments that you get a chance to smile in the face of all that we're facing. Super, thank you. I'm going to end that so we can keep talking. I don't know if I shared the results or not, but we certainly are, you know, skewing optimistic. So let's, we don't have any questions or any hands raised, and you know, like I said, we're willing to address specific issues specific to your business, because if it's on your mind, it's likely on someone else's mind. Let me kind of go here to a list of questions. Love to ask some more questions about people. Marcia, you already answered some of my questions about the differences between like layoffs and furloughs. Marcia, maybe, so I've encountered this with some companies. Like, how do you decide, should I lay off some of my staff or furlough them, or should I ask the whole staff for pay cuts? I've got clients doing both. What do you know, how would you guide someone to thinking about that?
It's a great question, Mike. I would say really it depends upon your cash flow and where you're at with that. Like my one company that furloughed everybody, he had quite a bit of cash, but he said, listen, if this goes 4 months, I won't have that cash and I have no company. So it all depends upon survival of the company and how much, because he is all about widgets, and a lot of his business is actually overseas where it got hit pretty hard. So he just said the sales went down pretty significantly. So it really depends upon your cash flow and having a really honest conversation. So he decided not to lower their salaries and just put everybody in furlough. I have another group that actually put people on 25%, you know, company-wide. And now he's doing that, but he's worried about cash flow too. So he might still have to put people on furlough, even though he already basically downsized 25% on the pay.
Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't. I mean, I think I've heard mostly about people downsizing their staff, but you know, yesterday I encountered a couple of clients who asked people to, in a sense, I think it was a 30% pay cut, mm-hmm. And the team was actually relieved about that, because they knew that people might get cut, and they were all willing to take a 30% reduction so that nobody got cut. And I guess in the chaos of me coping this week, I had never considered that as a sort of the perhaps, you know, potentially a healthier outcome for some businesses.
Yeah, it really depends upon basically what you can do and what you can't do. And to be honest with you, I think it's really, unfortunately, the big, you know, devil's advocate here is nobody knows when this is going to end. And so unfortunately, if we knew like a month or two, it'd be like, okay, we're going to do this instead. But we don't know that answer. So unfortunately, we're trying to basically just save our companies and say, I'd rather come to a company that I have money versus none.
Super, thanks. Still waiting for some other questions here, and I can randomly start calling on people who have questions. Let's see, another question. So employees, and again, Marcia, this is another a team question. Our employees are hurting, right? You know, whether it's because they're worried about their job, or their spouse lost their income, or they can't afford their rent because we're paying less salary or lower commissions. they're scared, right? They're scared personally. Some of them I know are paralyzed with fear of healthcare, right? You know, I'm not sick, but look at the healthcare system. What could we do as employers to sort of keep people, you know, it affects, you know, our emotional state affects our ability to be effective and efficient as an employee, and as a business owner or leader, that sort of matters to us. How do we balance sort of we need to get our work done, but I really care about, you know, what's going on for you right now?
Right now, I can tell you, I even have a person who is pregnant on my team, and she already has pretty bad anxiety as it is. And it's been really difficult for her, even though I've said to her, like, really, I'm doing the best I can to keep alive as well. Half my team are recruiters, and a lot of my clients have basically gone on frozen. And so I think that it was basically having conversations, letting her know we're taking care of her, and really calming them down. And a lot of times, like I said, I'm reaching out to 3 to 5 of my people per day just to have a conversation. How you really doing? You know, the camera's off. Talk to me how you're feeling. What's really bothering you? I'm becoming a counselor. And you know what? And that's just part of my job right now. And I'm doing that for my clients too. They're calling me up because they're scared. And I'm trying to walk them through. I'm like, okay, let's look at the scenarios. This is like the best scenario. This is the worst scenario. Are you ready for that? You know, too. And it's really just basically being real. And so, you know, honestly, you got to put yourself out there right now, guys. Every Thursday now we're having Ask HR webinars, and having people that I don't even know come to us and ask us questions for an hour about HR. And I'm not charging. I don't even know these people, but I know we have to be in this together because we're all going through. It's not just, you know, a Pennsylvania thing or a New Jersey thing. So I think by having all that in those conversations is helpful. So if with your teams right now, guys, it's really important. You are now that true leader, but you're also becoming that empathetic leader where you're listening to them and taking the time with them. And it's exhausting. I am sleeping like a rock right now, even though parts of me is panic mode because I'm exhausted. But I know it's worth it. And I know they're going to see the rainbow at the very end here. I just, you know, it might be a month or 2 more months. And we just have to we have to basically build each other up as owners right now too, because it's just, we're all in it together. But take care of your people right now. It's so important. And just get out there and help people. Like one of the things is everybody who I'm connected to on LinkedIn and I see that are needing, hey, we've got jobs open, I'm forwarding that out there. We're not even a client, but I know if I can help, I have 9,000 contacts. If I can help you get that out there and get people, we're doing our part to help each other out. And that's what we should be doing all together right now.
Great. Thank you, Marcia. And I agree. One of the programs that we've been using in some of our trainings recently is based on the Brene Brown courage work, and the you know, it addresses shame and vulnerability, and ultimately trying to teach leaders that the more authentic we are, the better of a leader we are, which sort of feels counter to a lot of leadership styles. And so it is, we need to, here's the time that leaders need to step up and be strong. And like you, I'm spending 10, 11, 12 hours a day nonstop, sitting at the same desk, doing all my work, of course, remotely on video. Feel like I feel like a TV anchor sometimes because at my control desk. But we have to, that's for our teams, for our clients, for our prospects, for our peers, now's the time for leaders to step up. The ones who do are going to be the ones who come out stronger. And it is exhausting, and that's okay. So one of the things that I when I put out the list of things that leaders should be doing, I always do remind people, number one, you can't take care of others until you take care of yourself. So Marcia, get a good night's sleep. If you need to exercise in the morning, I know one leader who does, she does like push-ups or work little mini workouts in between meetings. And so you got to take care of yourself. It's kind of like the old airplane oxygen mask thing, right? Put on your mask first before you help your children next to you. We need to be fit, right? This is a trial that we have to make it through. Okay, super. Let's and I know some links are being shared in the chat. That's great. We still don't have other questions, and I know you guys have questions on your mind because there are some people in the participants who I know well. Oh, Lisa. So Marcia was talking a little bit about LinkedIn, and I've spent the last year very successful with LinkedIn prospecting. So while a majority of our new business comes from referrals and recommendations and leads from within our warm leads within our network. I've been very successful at using LinkedIn for cold calling for prospecting. So it's clearly the first thing that we stopped doing because it didn't feel right. But I don't want to not do it because it's effective, right? So how do when lead gen prospecting? How should we think about that right now?
So that's a great question, Mike. And I think the techniques that we might have used before this on LinkedIn are not necessarily going to be the same techniques in the messaging that we're going to use today on LinkedIn. So, and the other thing I just got to tell everybody, I don't believe in cold calling. I believe in prospecting, but there's no reason why anybody should ever cold call again. As long as you've got a legitimate reason to reach out, you could always warm up any cold calls. And I know that that's just a phrase that we use out there, but I believe that right now, whether we're reaching out to someone via LinkedIn, email, call, and I do believe in a multi-pronged approach because not every methodology is going to work, right? But we've got to make sure that the message that we're sending out, whether it be LinkedIn, email, or individual messages, is an appropriate message. So, and they need to be customized for the particular people that we're going after. So let's just take my packaging company. And I was on the coaching call with my sales rep yesterday, and we said the legitimate reason to reach out is, what if your current supplier can't keep up with the demand? I'd love to be able to be your backup supplier. Now that's the gist of the messaging, but it's not the exact message. It's even what we put in our subject line, right? So we've got to make sure that our outreach is methodical, that there is a cadence to it, that we know what our messaging is, we know how to handle the objections that we're going to be getting when we're reaching out to people, and really modify it just a little bit. But LinkedIn is such a powerful tool. And for some of you, I might have just connected as we were going through this, but connect with those people. Get the time to have what I used to call it a telecoffee or a teletea, but now that it's a great opportunity to get on Zoom and build those relationships and get referrals to other people that you might be able to help out. So I love, Mike, you and I talked about the fact that your LinkedIn was really working very well for you, and I think that that's phenomenal. But I just think we need to tweak our messaging, because if we don't address the elephant in the room, then it comes off as salesy, and that's the last thing anybody wants to be at this point in time.
Perfect. And I echo that. I use the word cold call just because it's the word there, but everything we do is warm because it's with purpose. We've researched it. We know why we're talking to you, and we're very custom in our messaging. Let's see. Oh wait, we've got a question. Jim. Jim, that's not a question, is it? There'll be a recording. Let me know if I can get it transcribed for you. All right, Jim, appreciate that. Thank you. Jim, raise your hand if you wanted to ask more about that. What about at least the sales prospect? So we all, any of us who were selling because we're a business owner or a provider or a salesperson, you had people, I've got a couple prospects who are warm. I mean, a couple contracts that were out, and they, they're not being responsive right now, for certainly understandable reasons. What do what would be an approach to, the messages that I've sent, you know, are you okay? Happy to help. You know, would love to, you know, I get things are different now. You know, I want to be here for you. How can you, how would you recommend addressing those situations?
So basically, people are going dark on you. They're not responding to your emails. They're not responding to your phone calls. And what do we do when people go dark? Okay. So there's a whole bunch of different techniques that we could use. Again, I'm going to repeat it again. Not everything works for everybody. Not everything works in every situation. But the first thing I would do, Mike, is go back to why were they originally interested in the first place? What were the areas that you were going to help them when you originally engaged them? Go back to those areas because that's what they really care about. Also, I love to say, you know what? I know you must be busy and I'm sure things are really crazy on your end. However, I would love to set up a quick 15-minute phone call. A lot of my clients that I was talking to in the past, or a lot of folks that I was talking to in the past are, you know, telling me that they're really uncertain as to what to do right now. I'd love to just grab 15 minutes of your time and talk through what's going on right now and figure out if I have some ideas that might be helpful for you. People want to hear ideas. If they think you're trying to sell them something, they're not picking up the phone. But if you say, you know what, I had an additional thought that I'd love to share with you. Let's get a time on the calendar next week for a quick 15-minute phone call. That sometimes will help. And then in scheduling, one of the best techniques in scheduling is to use an alternative choice close. So a lot of my clients are saying, oh, I can help you out. If you need any help, don't hesitate to reach out. Very passive kind of approach. I might say something more like, you know what, I'd love to grab 15 minutes of your time, find out what's going on with you right now and see if I have some ideas that might be helpful for you. If they think that you're going to be able to help them as opposed to sell them, they might be more open to it. And then the last thing I'll say, Mike, is we could use something like that last message. So I've been reaching out to you for three months now and I haven't heard back. I'm guessing it's because you're either too busy, too concerned about this, or you've decided that you're not interested in continuing our conversation. I hope it's not the latter, but if it is, just let me know and, you know, we could talk in the future. Kind of that last bit, but make sure, salespeople, one thing I see over and over again, people talk about their benefits. I could help you with sales, I could do training, I could do coaching, but people don't really care about all that. It's how you can help them out in the benefits. So we've got to make sure our sales folks, and for those of you who are, you know, solopreneurs out there, we got to talk about benefits and how you could help out.
Great, thank you. Let me turn this question to everyone, all the panelists here, because this touches all of our specialties, collections. So existing clients who aren't paying, can't pay, don't want to pay, or waiting for something to happen. Maybe they're going dark. We want to retain them. You know, if you know, I work with companies who are SaaS companies, they hit the credit card monthly. That's not a big deal. But for any business that's invoicing, any business that's that has a contract in place, what are some of the best practices you're recommending for, you know, getting the you know, what you worked for?
I could tell you, we're having conversations with each of them and asking them about, are you okay? Is it still on time? And if it's not, we're actually saying, there's a few that aren't. We're putting them on, hey, we're having a payment plan that we basically break it out a little bit longer and all too. Knowing that they're with us and they really appreciate that. And so we don't even use credit card for our stuff, and people have been asking for that too. And you're like, huh. But it's really just having a lot of communication. So we've been very fortunate to have very low debt in regards to a non-receivable, but I would say it's more about payment plans right now and communication.
I agree with that. I mean, it's about payment plans. It's about a little bit about trying to see what's tied to service as well. So, you know, not for me, for example, not our business, but other companies were recommending that you have other down the line, you know, suppliers that are affected by that AR piece. So that accounts receivable. So you, fortunately or unfortunately, you kind of have to tie those together so that you can keep what is working. So if, for what I mean is if there's an installer or something that ties into a customer paying to get the job done, unfortunately that installer might need to be held until that AR. So that's for some larger organizations that we're recommending that, but you do need to tie it to the things that are working as well if you can't get payment to keep things flowing, cash flowing.
Yeah.
So.
Thanks. Lisa, any thoughts about retention and client relations in the face of collections?
Well, Marcia, again, you continue to inspire me all the time. You know, setting goals as far as getting to your existing clients and having conversations with them and letting them know that you're there for them both personally and professionally, and asking about their family and really showing that you care is extremely important. I do believe, you know, some in payment plans, some clients, I'm telling them, you know what, let's not worry. I'm going to continue to help you through this time, and we'll deal with this on the back end because I don't want to stop helping you. So you really gotta treat each client a little bit differently, but really help them during this tough time. And you know what? We're all struggling with this. We're all struggling with our attitude. All of us are worried about our loved ones right now and the health and safety. And by the way, if our loved ones are safe, then that's really the most important thing out there. All this is going to subside, and I am optimistic that we all can be much stronger on the back end, but really having those heart-to-heart conversations and treating every situation just a little bit differently. But if our clients know that we're there with them during the tough times, they're going to come back and be there with us and more loyal on the back end.
Thank you, Lisa. We've got a couple of hands raised, so before we run out of time, I want to just do some quick, take some quick comments. So, Sean, let me get your hand there.
So, Lisa, I liked a lot of what you said, but this whole you've ignored my calls and emails for the last 3 months, I guess you don't want to talk to me, strikes me as not maybe the best way to go. I think the lack of a response is an answer, and if they're not responding, I don't see how calling them out on it and saying you're ignoring me. It's kind of what I call the whiny boyfriend mode, right? Where it's like, hey, you know, how come we never see each other anymore?
Sean, thank you for that feedback. And again, that would be more of a last resort to give that kind of, you know, final email there. But a lot of people are reaching out to me, as I'm sure they are for all of you. And guess what? It's not that I'm not interested. It's just that right now I've got other things on my plate. So, you know, there's a reason why they're not getting back to us. And the other thing I would say, one thing that people are really reluctant to do, but I think it's the time to do it, is pick up that phone. Pick up the phone and call them. So if they're, you know, not responding to our emails, because it's very easy to ignore, pick up the phone and have that conversation. But I totally get your feedback, Sean. And again, that would be more of a last resort kind of thing. I do a lot of other tactics before I got to there.
So, especially given what's going on right now, and obviously perhaps what state they're in or what city they're in, why not say, look, I know it's a troubling time. I'll circle back in September, see how things are there. Why do some kind of thing that breaks it off as opposed to let me check back in the fall?
You could absolutely push it back to the fall, but if you think you could help them before the fall, then why push it off? That's just my feeling. A lot of people are saying, call me back when this is all over. Well, I could help you in between. So it really depends again, what your particular business is. And for some people, we are just going to call them in the fall. Some people are say, call me back in May. You know, so it again, there's so much uncertainty there, but there is a line in the sand, Sean, that if we cross that line, we become that pushy car salesman, obnoxious, all the things that none of us want to be. We have to get up to that line, but never cross it. So I'm very cognizant that some people might be turned off by certain techniques, but again, if we really truly believe that we're helping them, then we don't have to be reluctant to either push back or reach out to them.
So if that's the case, it seems to me you can embed in the email specific guidance or specific suggestions, as opposed to you haven't responded to my emails and phone calls. If you want to be helpful, be helpful. But you don't know what's going on in these people's lives. And, you know, maybe they've got somebody that's in the hospital, maybe, who knows, right? And I think you can hit people at a time where you end the relationship.
Well, I would never recommend anybody to do that. And Sean, I totally understand your perspective. We don't want to tick anybody off. So we want to, you know, do what we need to do. But the last thing is to hurt a relationship or with a client or a prospect in any way. So if you're getting any of that from what I'm saying, that's not what I'm trying to say. But I am trying to say that there are things we could say. So many of my clients are saying, oh, okay, I'll just call you in the fall. Oh, okay, I'll just call you in the fall. But there's a lot of conversations we could be having prior to that.
Great, thanks, Sean. And I kind of muted you just because I want to give us a chance to wrap up here, because I want to do one last poll. I'm going to launch it right now. I know some people have had to drop off and been saying goodbye in chat, but you know, I'm looking for predictions. Like, you know, what's the consensus as to when do we recover here? It's, you know, this doesn't necessarily come with any certainty. It doesn't make any clarity around the uncertainty, but interested in people's perspectives, I think. All right, again, I think here's where people's optimism comes in. Well, nobody said the end of April. Nobody's planning on Easter, I guess, here in the metropolitan regions. You know, maybe Montana, but not the metropolitan regions. It does look like there's some optimism about the summer, which is good, because that seems survivable for most of us. Mid next year is interesting. That just means we need to hunker down a little bit more. Super, thank you for that. Let me, right, so here's where we ended up. Okay. The one last question for the panel. You know, just I'd love to end on a positive note, a fantasy piece. What are what's one or a couple of good things that you've seen come from this? And I know this has come up frequently in today's conversation, but Jeff, what's a positive that you've seen come out of today's crisis?
Sure. I obviously health of everybody is first here. So we get through that and we move on. But from a business level, this is unprecedented of the amount of liquidity and support the government is throwing into this economy right now. This is they never support recessions to this level. And so I would argue, and this is again my opinion to be very clear, but I would argue that bogey we had on our back about when is a recession going to come, it's now. We're going to push through that. We're going to have enough in this economy post this scenario for the next 3, 4, 5 years probably. So I would argue that you should take advantage of this from a planning and grow your business back to where you want it to be. Honestly, in a few months from now. So
thank you, Jeff. Marcia?
I can tell you the people are, I don't know about you guys, but my team right now, I feel is the closest it's ever been. I feel as if like we are really have each other's backs like no tomorrow. I also think with our clients and all too, we've been helping them out. They've been helping us out and all too. So I think if anything, the silver lining is that we're getting tighter and we trust each other. We're really trying to help each other out. One of my girls is making on the side, she knits and crochets everything. And she told us yesterday, she goes, yeah, every evening at 6 o'clock, we have a webinar with all the girls that are sewing masks with all the additional materials we have around the house. And I said, oh my God, I'm like, we're going to share that. She's like, we're just ran out of elastic. I said, well, okay, well, how about next week we share that out to all of our people to say, hey, who has elastic that we can maybe help you guys get this stuff done, because we're helping other people. And I think everybody's just doing that right now, taking off our capes and saying, hey, pulling off our sleeves and saying, how can we help? And we're all seeing all these big companies saying, hey, I can do ventilators. I can do plastics, coverings. We're all in it together. So I think we're going to get resilient. I think it's going to make the country even tighter. I think it's going to bring back manufacturing into the states and saying, yeah, we're never going to be stuck again with our pants down. And so it's really been a great thing to see in a weird way. And it's strange enough too. I think the best thing is we're reconnecting with our families. And we're seeing how they're doing. We're having dinner together. We're not being rushed by meeting after meeting after meeting. And I told my husband, I hate the way it's going on right now, but I like the fact that I'm not rushing so much like I was doing, and I was driving myself crazy. I know it's been long days right now too, but I feel so much more impactful in the world today than I did before.
Thanks, Marcia. Lisa.
Well, I've been called Little Miss Mary Sunshine because I can kind of look at the positives in every negative situation. And I agree with a lot of all of your points. I love seeing people outside, walking. I've seen more people in my neighborhood than ever. But I've also found that I'm reconnecting with people that I've lost touch with. I'm going back and, rekindling those relationships. I'm finding that my friendships and my work relationships, I'm in touch more. I'm sending out the jokes that we're getting on a constant basis, and just, keeping those relationships going. And I do really believe that a lot of businesses are going to come out of this stronger. For those people that are looking at the possibilities instead of the obstacles that we're faced with right now. So again, if we have our health and our loved ones have our health, then all this will pass, and we're going to be stronger on the back end.
Great, thanks, Lisa. And I think I shared some of mine in my initial fantasy slide. We're becoming better leaders, better teams. We're better planners. We're just running our businesses a lot more mindful, and that is a good thing. That's the thing that coaches and consultants and advisors have been trying to get companies to do, and here we are. And the other thing I said is we're all out of our comfort zone. And that's where we grow, right? There's the universe of things there is to know. There's this pinpoint of what we know, and there's this pinpoint of what we don't know. And the rest of the universe is all the stuff that we don't know. And we're now in that zone. And that's where we're going to grow. Jeff, Marcia, Lisa, thank you so much for all the participants. We were up to, at some point, I think about 38. So there's been a lot of interest, and we're going to make the recording available for those who are multitasking or had to pop in and out on other things, which we know is the case. Everyone, stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you, Mike.
Run a good business, and we'll catch you on the other side.